out and about on a Sunday. Some horrible sound coming from just behind there where my flat's the other side of that big building there. And just a real sort of screechy metallic sound just before midday. I was having a bit of a snooze. And yeah, not the nicest sound. It's abated, it hasn't been anything since. It only lasted about 10-15 minutes, thank God. But you get that here, you get all these sort of tray type sounds. It's some of them pretty, yeah, that was pretty ear-wrenching. Anyway, football's on again today, and I've actually they've got it broadcast. So, football for my side, that is. Richmond's playing again at 3 o'clock. I don't even know where they're playing. It must be interstate because of all the coronavirus stuff. Because it appears as if, you know, basically it's total lockdown in Victoria. Most of the teams actually relocated up north. And they're playing in a bubble, and I'm just wondering if there's going to be any crowd, because I watched a bit of I just looked at a little bit of the rugby yesterday. Not that I watched that code, but I was interested to see whether there's any crowd, because my cousin's other half said that he watches it, and there was definitely some people allowed into the ground to watch the match, and sure enough there were some people watching. I mean, they never really grab big crowds in rugby league, but there was sort of like a suburban match type crowd there, you know, very scattered, not many people, but it was better than nothing. It's nothing worse than an empty arena. I think that looks terrible. So there was some genuine crowd sounds, and I guess all the technical people have to do is just turn up the mic and they'll get plenty of noise still, because you only need a few hundred people to make a bit of a crowd noise. So hopefully that'll start happening with the AFL games, because I really miss that. The atmosphere is really important. It's a really important part of the code, the supporters and what have you, and without that it does feel sterile. It's an amazing number of people that I come across walking down the road these days. I seem to see more people walking down the footpaths than I had in the past. So, mind you, things up here are a bit more relaxed. I don't think you have to win any prizes to work out who I'm going to nominate as my scumbag of the week. I'll cue the sound, and here it comes. Yeah, well, no great surprise there. Good old Dan the man. He certainly put Victoria in isolation, and also affected the whole country. So not bad for a premier to stuff up everything, not just his own state, but having interstate ramifications as well. So well done, Dan. You've really you've shown your true colours. And apparently he was riding high in the popularity stakes a month or two ago, back in April. I wonder how he's going these days. But I can't figure out, Victorians, they might love him more. Maybe they're just masochists. They like being locked down, and they don't blame him for any of the bungles with the apartment thing, where you had the supposed minders of the apartment, people in quarantine, actually taking them out and having sex with them and whatever. Just a pretty big scandal, I would have thought. And like I say, allowing people to demonstrate en masse about Black Lives Matter, because it's the political doctrine that's more important than actually fighting a virus. That seems to be fairly obvious. That's not just Dan, though. To be fair, that's actually something that happened, I think, in all Australian states. So they can all go to hell for that one. Like I say, no respect for our supposed state leaders. They're pathetic. But anyway, Dan, I think you have earned your Guernsey as the scumbag of the week. So congratulations. Wear it with honour. Well, moving on to some SpaceX news. Basically the news about SpaceX, there is no news in a way. It's just, we've just been treading water at Boca Chica for the last month, since the disaster with SN4 blowing up. I mean, things have been happening, but there's been no actual action on the launch pad, as it were. SN5 has been completed. It even has a booster rocket attached to it. It has a Raptor engine attached, one of them. It's Raptor engine number 27. They're going to keep improving the design up until Raptor 50, so there's a fair way to go with the development of that engine, but they've produced 27. They need a hell of a lot more of them though, because just one Starship can take, I think it's 31 Raptors on the lower level and about 5 or so in the top level. So yeah, there's just going to be a requirement for hundreds of these rocket engines initially, and thousands in the future. So it's going to be a huge production line. But the thing about Musk is he's unlike other people like Bezos, in that he actually owns a company that is in mass production, and he's learned a hell of a lot about how to mass produce cars and the hard way. And probably the best way to reinforce a lesson is learning the hard way. And he realizes how difficult it is. He says it's 1,000 times harder than just designing a one-off Starship. So he's, like I said, he's got one prototype SN5 on the launch pad, waiting to have its static fire, which is the first. It's gone through the first test. It's had a cryo tank thing. They pumped the fuel in there, and they've checked it under pressure, and that's worked out fine. Next thing is a static fire, and after that there'll be a 150 meter hop. But we've been waiting a long time for that. The last time we saw that was late last year, and I was expecting a lot more progress at this point. So it's been rather disappointing, rather tardy by Elon standards. I do say this thing called Elon time, but in other ways there's a hell of a lot happening there. SN6 has been built, so there's another prototype already completed, just sitting in storage at the moment, and I think 6 and 7 are also being built as we speak. So you should be able to ramp up the development quite quickly once he starts moving again. That's the big advantage he's got over competitors. So I mean, you compare that to Bezos, who's actually had a supposed rocket, a reusable rocket. It is reusable. It's very small, the New Shepard, tiny compared to the New Glenn. That's a big rocket, but this one is small, but it's actually designed for tourism at suborbit, and it's been ready for some time, but for some reason he isn't taking paying customers. Very strange. Not sure what's going on there. So he should have been sending paying customers into a suborbit flight for some time now, probably for 6 months or so. I think the delay is quite large. So what Musk is doing is much more important, because the Starship is a totally different class of spaceship compared to the New Shepard or the New Glenn. They're firecrackers in comparison. Well, New Glenn is a big rocket, but that's probably a bit unfair to call it a firecracker, but certainly the New Shepard is. That's tiny. So he's certainly way ahead there, but he seems to have caught a bit of the Bezos disease of moving. I forget what the Latin phrase was. Use some wanky Latin phrase, which basically means moving steadily but ferociously, or something like that. And but at the moment, Boca Chica, they seem to be doing a lot of development stuff. They're building pads for the Super Heavy launcher, which is the really big one that goes below the Starship. So that had to be done. That is being done. They're building a new building, a high bay building, which is really tall one, which will take in the Super Heavy booster, and that had to be done. So that's all. This is all groundwork stuff that does need to be complete. So that's fine. But as a space enthusiast, I'd really like to see a rocket go up into the air, and not just 150 meters, but the 20-kilometer flight is what I'm really looking forward to, because we know that the Raptor engines can take them 150 meters. That's pretty well proven already, because we've already seen it. But I want to see the actual 20-kilometer flight. That'll be something interesting, and presumably with nose cone and flaps and everything. So, but as I say, Elon Musk is determined to mass produce spaceships, which has never happened before. So quite revolutionary. So we'll see, but at the moment, every time I look up the updates, they've got dates for road closures indicating when they're going to be doing testings, and the last couple of dates were cancelled, which is very frustrating. It should have happened this weekend, the static fire and maybe even the hop, but now we're looking at next week, and that just seems to be happening a lot lately. So fingers crossed we start moving forward. I mean, he has got a lot of other things to do. He's also had to delay the Starlink communication satellite deployment. There was another flight of that which was scheduled, and that got scrapped last week, so that should be happening very soon, next day or so. So it's just the nature of space. There's a lot of things can go wrong. It's a miracle these things ever get off the ground, because what he's doing is continually reducing weight of the rockets. So these are just tight, really thin structures that are holding volatile fuel in them. It's amazing they ever get it to work, because of the pressures, the tolerances, they push them to the limits. It's the limit of engineering. So it's no wonder they have explosions from time to time, because they really are pushing the envelope. But they do have a good track record now, SpaceX, so I think they'll get there. But I've got to say, I've been a little frustrated this year. It hasn't gone quite as well as I'd hoped. There's been plenty of other distractions with the corona business, but I was really hoping to see something a little more substantial with the SpaceX development, because it is really fundamentally so important. The interesting thing is that, if we can get out of the gravity well, get like 100 tons of cargo into orbit, that's a huge change, and we'll be able to do so many different things once we go on the moon and get a base happening, do research and things. Just everything's going to open up. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you think there's anything there of use to you, or entertainment or whatever. And either do that or give me a thumbs up, or if you're feeling really energetic, do both. That'd be great. But please don't ignore me. That's the worst thing you can do on YouTube, is be ignored.